Gray brings her win them over, know-how, delightful enthusiasm, and everyday wit to encourage women to use their influence for good. She is a speaker, small business coach, and impact entrepreneur on a mission to equip women to create change and come alive. From Wall Street to the streets with no name, you can find Emily traveling in developing nations to find gorgeous goods for her downtown Raleigh, North Carolina boutique and online shop known as the Flourish Market. Her latest venture, The Locality, a co-working space for 60 female entrepreneurs, opened in the summer of 2019, with membership spots selling out before construction even started, proving that women are realizing life and business can be collaborative.
Welcome, Emily. How are you?
You know, just pandemicking on like everybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good Wednesday. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'm excited and honored that you're here today. For those of you who don't know, Emily Gray has been around Raleigh for many years and does some really amazing stuff. She's a speaker, right? You're a business coach, and you're really, really into the women entrepreneurship. So I'm excited to learn about that and how you're just creating great changes for that demographic. So that being said, for people who don't know who you are, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what gets you excited?
Sure. I'm going to start with what gets me excited because I feel like people need good ideas right now because we're in a pandemic. So I highly recommend adopting a pandemic puppy. That gets me really excited right now. I have a 7-month-old puppy at home. Best idea and worst idea ever. So walking with my little guy, Henry, gets me excited. I love paddle boarding. I love making spicy margaritas for my friends from 6 feet away. Love hanging out at Dick's Park. If you're local, it's the best place to go. So what's getting me excited right now is really the everyday things that I didn't quite celebrate before the pandemic hit. So that is the silver lining for me. As far as who I am and what I do, I always like to say I'm a hype girl for women. So originally thought I would be Britney Spears' backup dancer. Went to college for dance, didn't work out, thank God. But I really do carry that concept into the work that I do. So you kind of described it, G, in 3 parts. One, I'm the owner of the Flourish Market. We're a women's and gifts boutique in downtown Raleigh. We're also online. All of our products have a bigger purpose. So they promote, helping people vote with their dollars for certain social justice topics. So that's a big part of what I do. That's how I got started into the entrepreneurial world. Last summer, in the summer of 2019, I launched my second business venture called The Locality. Yep. It's a co-working space and incubator program for 60 female entrepreneurs. That's been interesting taking that online. We can talk about that later if you want. So we're virtual and in person right now. That has been just one of the greatest joys of my life, has been walking alongside these incredible female entrepreneurs. And then the third part of what I do is I'm a speaker and I'm a coach. So normally I'm speaking, well now it's virtual, to companies a lot, to their women's leadership programs. I speak to college campuses, girls, women, about like owning their influence in any room they walk into. And then the coach part, of course I coach entrepreneurs, I do all sorts of things, but this year I've really been focusing in on makers and brand owners that are looking to pitch retail, giving them a boutique owner's perspective on how to land and grow wholesale accounts. So that may sound like so many different things, but at the end of the day, I really want women to show up in our economy in a big way, to be successful, and anything I can do to hype that up and be their backup dancer, I'm there for them.
Well, that's amazing. That is well much needed. And so how long have you been I guess, you were in a corporate background prior to this, right?
I was.
And then you took a leap into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about your corporate background, right? And what you learned from it, and then what led you into being an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I may have thrown people off when I mentioned Britney Spears' backup dancer. I promise I actually did have a legit corporate career. So I graduated from college in 2007 from Elon University and fell into a job with a Swiss investment bank. I started in Raleigh, but very quickly moved to London and lived there, worked all over Europe and Asia. And by the time I left there when I was 30, because I had a third-of-life crisis, like many people do, I guess. But by the time I left, I was the vice president of change management and communications. So I worked for a bank that had 55,000 employees, and my job was to win staff over to new ideas, new things coming down the pipeline. But if anyone listening is in corporate, usually, that's bad news. Like, it's not necessarily good news. I lived through the economic crisis of 2008 in investment banking while living in London, had a lot of layoffs. And so I really honed the skill set there of learning to be honest and transparent with people when bad news is just bad news, and speaking truth to them, but also helping bring them along through that change. And I fell into entrepreneurship because I gave a yes. And I'm going to tell you guys, be careful with your yeses because they can take you off the cliff.
Right.
In a good way, though. My friend reached out to me one day when I was living in London, and she was like, hey, my friend is working for a nonprofit. They're looking to raise a ton of money for these female entrepreneurs in Africa who are doing incredible things in their local community, driving really good change, putting out fair jobs, fair wages. And she was like, I know your email signature says something about communications. She's talking about sending out an email campaign, and maybe you could help her. So long story short, she connected me. That yes became another yes, became another yes, became another yes. And I found myself really coming alive using the skill set I'd honed in corporate by helping nonprofits and social enterprises win people over to their fundraising campaigns and to buy their fairly made goods. And I was like, oh crap, this is awesome, but how does this pay my bills? And so I sat with that. I think a lot of people sit with that, right? They're kind of maybe stuck or unstuck. I would say maybe feel a little bit frozen in their current job, and they want more out of life or to have a better impact or do something different, but they feel a bit frozen. And so I sat in that a couple of years, but what helped me move through that was just keep giving yeses, and keep building momentum and volunteering my time and really feeling like, okay, what do I like and what do I not like about this? And the more yeses you give, the more you show up places where you want to be, the more opportunity comes your way. And so what happened was, basically, I was an illegal importer. Because
legal importer.
Okay, thank you. We'll take the IL off. Literally, every time I would travel abroad to go and be with these social enterprises, my friends would be like, "Can you bring me back 2 of those necklaces you got before? Can you bring me back 5 of those bags for my friends for Christmas? Can you bring me back? Can you bring me back? Can you bring me back?" And so I ended up schlepping all of these things across the border, back home. Honestly, it was legal. Believe me, I declared everything. Please don't send people after me. But it got me thinking, I think people are really into this idea of shopping with meaning, using their purchasing power for good. And what I felt at the time was all these social enterprises, they were making good things, especially if you could give them direction on, hey, this is what my friends would like. But they were the world's best kept secret. And the incredible work they were doing to drive change in their community, for example, to employ women who have been stigmatized because of the HIV and AIDS diagnosis they received, by employing them and helping those women find their worth and break free from the lies that they're worth nothing, that when they got a job, that permeated to every part of their being and into their communities. And it gave them a new chance at life, their kids. It rewrote things for generations to come. And so the work they were doing was really important, but no one knew about it. So flash forward to right before my 30th birthday, I was obsessed with the tiny house shows.
Uh-huh.
Are you into those?
I want to build some.
Okay, let's go into business on that. Let's talk about that later. Offline. Okay, I own several domains for tiny houses that I'm just, bought, how you save them. But I was obsessed with the tiny house shows at the time. And one night on Pinterest, as you do, you pin all the things. This is what my tiny house is going to look like when I build it. I came across the concept of a fashion truck. I'd never seen it before, and it was an old photo linked to an old article about LA's first fashion truck. And I was like, what the crap is this?
Right.
And I clicked on it, and I saw that it was a mini boutique on wheels. And that is when it clicked for me, all these things I felt frozen about, how could I put this all together, all came together, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can test this concept. I can buy fairly made goods from all of these nonprofits and social enterprises that I've interacted with over the years, put that in the back of a truck, and drive it around town to see if women in my community would be interested in using their purchasing power for good. That was July of 2015. I turned 30. I told my boss that I quit, which was hard to leave. I loved my job. And in October of 2015, I launched the Flourish Market. It was a fashion truck for our first year.
That's
Crazy.
awesome. I mean, that reminds me of, I know we're recording, but who was that gentleman that was doing Jared was trying to do that. Yeah, I remember that.
We would be at events together
Yeah.
and we would talk about like how hard and how awesome it was all at the same time, because a lot of things people don't know about fashion trucks and things like that is you have to pack up everything and secure everything before you move. So you might just walk up the steps and shop, but we spend an hour setting that up every single day and then packing it up and sweating in the back of 100-degree.
No one ever realizes what goes behind the scene, right?
Sweat equity.
I mean, when you see, obviously, I looked at your digital storefront. It's beautiful. I saw the image of the truck that you talked about, and just to even get to that place where okay, this is the right place. So it's like, how do you know that this is right, or that feeling, right? That gut feeling that we get. It's like, when you find love, you just know. Mm. So I think similar concept applies to when you're an entrepreneur. It's like, when do you know this is right? What I'm doing is correct for me.
Yeah. A lot of people listening, you've known something is right for a long time and you're sitting on it.
Right.
Do I look at this video camera? You're sitting on it. Yeah. Okay. It's not a spectator sport. Get in the game, friend. Honestly, though, I knew it for a while. And I coach a lot of women who've known things for a while. And I think a lot of us just need someone to look at us and say, I believe in you.
Yeah.
For the women behind our products, they needed someone to go to their village or, first generation college students, for example, look them in the eye here in the U.S. and say, I believe in you. And you know what? I'm no different. Mm-hmm. I needed friends in my life to say, yeah, I believe in you. My friend Taylor texted me the other day. She was filling in for someone and volunteering her time and steaming some clothes, and she's like, oh my gosh, I remember almost 5 years ago you texting me and saying, hey Tay, I have this crazy idea. I think I'm going to buy this truck like in rural North Carolina and like quit my job and do this thing. And she was like, you've done it. But Taylor was one of those people who, when I texted, she was like, yeah, girl, get it. And then she FaceTimed me and she was like, yes, this is it. And so we can do that for each other because we need to point out to each other, you felt this for a while in your gut.
No, that's amazing. And that's, I think, part of me for my journey, right? I've always enjoyed, I like Jared. I remember I met Jared when he was at NC State.
Yep.
So I'm an advisory board at Entrepreneurs Clinic. And actually, that's how I met Jeb as well. A lot of the young entrepreneurs. Yeah, absolutely. Jeb's behind the camera, by the way, as always. So if anybody's ever wondering who records and takes all these pictures, it's usually him. If it was a bad picture, it was probably him too. But it's always inspiring to help young entrepreneurs to achieve their dream. And one of the statements you made, when you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to figure out, how am I going to get paid, right? So when you're in that limbo, I mean, how do you prepare for yourself to take that jump from, let it be from corporate, or if you're coming out of college? Because my thing is, like, if you don't take the chance right now, you're never going to do it, because comfort is not a good thing when you're an entrepreneur. When you're comfortable, you just become stagnant, right?
Yeah.
And you have to push the limits. So how do you prepare for that?
Oh my gosh, get a good therapist. And I really mean that because the biggest block is our brain. It's the way we think about what we're capable of. So get a therapist, get a business coach, however you want to spin that. That's how you prepare. And be doing that, I say, at least 3 to 6 months before you ever make any big decision. Because you need to be able to do two things. One, think rationally. Have that pen on paper. I usually tell people, like, you need X amount of time, like X amount of months worth of expenses in the bank for yourself before you start. That can be 3 months for some people, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. That lights a fire under people's asses, because I'm like, well, now you know. Yep. Okay, so if you have 12 months of expenses, if in 9 months you're not getting it, you need to start your job search back. So two things. You need to be rational, right, and be able to, like, look at that. But you also need to trust yourself and know what you're capable of so you can get after it. So I think between those two things, that's how you prepare. I think people spend all day preparing financially and storing up. But if you don't have the mental capacity and the belief in yourself and your gifts and what you offer to the world, your money is going to be drained out of that account, because you're never going to put yourself, your products, your offers out there boldly for people to come in and buy and purchase from you to build that account back up. It's
really well said. And one thing that resonated with me is trust yourself. And a lot of times it's a doubt that doesn't allow us to step outside that comfort zone or think outside the box, because, as humans, we're prone to be in that box and where the comfort is, right? I mean, that's how it started. We're in our mother's womb, and that was the most comfortable place. And to step out of that, it's a scary space.
Yes.
And talking about scary space, I mean, talk about now, right? I mean, you're an
Everything's
entrepreneur.
5G. It's not
Everything's
scary.
amazing, right? With our current state of the world with COVID-19, what impact is that having on your business? How are you adapting to it? And, what voice can you share for others to, honestly, I think a lot of people do need hope at this time, including myself, right? Being in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, tough. It's tough. And I just want to hold space for that for a hot minute and just say, before I say anything hope-filled that I'm going to say next, like, there's so much trauma and grief and hard things that everyone is going through right now, or at least 99% of the population of the world, right? Maybe if you work for Clorox, good on you. You're doing really well.
Or 3M.
Or 3M. Yeah, there's a couple industries doing well right now. But I mean, honestly, I just wanted to hold space for that and just say, like, I have cried many tears. I have held space for people to cry many tears. I've had close friends lose parents. I mean, it's really hard right now. Okay, comma. Everything changed for me. My business, okay, we had to close our doors for 2 months. We moved online. There was a whole shelter in place, so we weren't shipping then. We went from 5% e-commerce to 95% e-commerce during that time. Our sales immediately dropped 40%. For Flourish Market, our business model is in-store parties. So over 50% of our sales previous to COVID came from in-store parties, women coming in, bringing all their friends, and we would donate 10% of sales to their favorite charity. So our business model, that's always been unique and has worked, completely stopped working. Obviously, we can't gather. For the locality, our co-working space immediately went online. And then for speaking, all my events were ex-nayed, totally canceled. I was like, we're going to talk virtual? Nope, everyone's having a meltdown. Okay. But here's where I went, and it goes back to being rational, the two things I said, being able to make rational decisions and also like having that mental capacity and wherewithal to say, I've got this. I knew I was needed. Everyone's needed, right? But I was like, I have led change. And so literally overnight, I put together a website and online training the next day to help people lead their teams through change, small business owners, to people in corporate. And so I knew that I could float the Flourish Market while we were closed with my own like speaking money, my own consulting money. So that was my first. I was like, people don't have these resources. They don't even know how to work from home. They're managing teams from home. So that was my first thing I did. Got hired immediately right away, sold a ton of my online courses. And so I was like, I'm ready. Mentally, I was ready. I knew, I'm like, okay, I'm leaning in. I know how to lead change, and the world has never experienced change like this before. So let's go. And that was like the first 2 weeks for me. And obviously I, within own internal businesses, I put the locality online. We met every morning. I was meeting with these women 9:30 to 10. Every week I brought in a therapist to do a mental health workshop. And I just really leaned into showing up for people because I've been through hard things in my life. I've watched women behind our products go through really hard things in their lives. And it's a lie to say, we can't take this. And so I think what I saw was women who've been through a lot of tough crap step up, lean in and say, I've got you, girl. Yeah. I've got you, and I'll help carry you through this. And really now I find myself speaking and coaching a lot around how to pivot and how to stay in the game because things have changed. They've changed, G. And it's wild out there, but if you listen well, that's the whole thing behind change management. To get people to come along and change with you, you have to listen well, whether you're leading a team in corporate, whether you're like me at Flourish Market, catering to something new our customers might want. They're not buying dresses or big statement jewelry right now. Okay, so What do you want instead? The key is to listen and listen well. When you can show up and meet real needs that are timely, you will be successful.
That's so inspirational. That's awesome.
Thank you.
No, it is because as entrepreneurs, right, by nature, we're problem solvers.
Yes.
But sometimes individuals think they're entrepreneurs, but they're just subsidizing themselves as an employee for their company, right? To show up and to listen and to pivot, and always for me to look at glass half full has always served me well. Granted, we're going through this COVID phase, and hospitality's been impacted tremendously.
Crazy.
But you really, really have to say, okay, well, if this didn't exist, what would exist? How could we position ourselves to create success, right? And how can we come out of this in a positive manner? Because you're right, we've all faced tremendous challenges. We've lost individuals we've loved. We've lost our baby, meaning that business that you created from ground up, to lose it. And I've seen it firsthand, and we all faced it, but we will come out of it. And I firmly believe that. And I firmly believe that also when you face challenges like this, you come out stronger.
Yes.
You can survive.
Yep.
And having that voice, having that reason, having that voice of encouragement, and the right individuals around you, that's what really helps.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it's great to have a business coach. It's great to have a therapist. I think I need to start going back to therapy.
I'm a big proponent of normalizing therapy, so I will encourage you about G. Yes.
So sometimes I sit in the corner and kind of ask myself, it's like, what do I need to do to grow? So for my question is like, I was like, I always try to find, okay, am I anchored? Am I stabilized where I'm at? And how am I going to move forward? So for you, right, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman, what do you do to when you want to elevate to a different level?
I love this. I love this question, and because I recently put this together, because from March to June, I was definitely like the leader in every capacity of my life. Don't get me wrong, my friends are amazing, and they were fulfilling me and really there for me, but I was leading so much and carrying so much with people, which I actually enjoyed and felt drawn to. It was great. But what I lacked was someone that was more successful than me, a couple of years beyond me, or many years beyond me, saying like, okay, like, think bigger, and this is how you can show up during this time. And so in July, I was so happy that one of the girls in one of my masterminds from 2018 reached out, got everyone back together, brought in our business coach. And so that has been so helpful, because we can play so small. I think people look at me and they're like, that girl plays big. And I'm like, if you only knew the women in my mastermind, my business coach, they are like blazing forward with impact in the world. And so I think we need these positive mirrors, like people who you don't turn your mirror out and look at them and compare and say, well, I'm not doing that. But women who like turn the mirror around and show you, call out inside of you what you're capable of. And so I do that for other women, but I need that desperately in my life as well, because I can think, oh, I'm doing well, I'm having impact. But then I'll be around them for an hour and I walk away lit. I'm like, yes, this, and this is something I can do. And I'm actually rolling out several projects over the next few months that came about out of that 1 hour conversation with my coach.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The mirror analogy is one of those things that I hold dearly, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have your successes and your failures, but you also get shitted on a lot, right?
A lot.
And
there are haters, and you can hate on yourself.
And I've had conversations with colleagues and friends and family that, how somebody interprets who you are is a reflection of them.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what you're doing, because we're all individual human beings. We all come from different threads, and so we have no space or room to judge what somebody else is doing, right? If you can't make a positive impact, then what are you doing? Why?
Yeah.
And, obviously from a personal standpoint, that's always challenging. But, going back to the business side of things, how do you uncover solutions, right? I mean, how do you, when business is thriving, it's amazing, right? Because to me, I always say devil's in the details, because when the top line is great, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
But when you hit a pandemic like this, or when, let's say business, or if you go from brick and mortar to e-commerce, right? There's a lot of solutions you have to create. So how do you go about creating solutions for your business?
Gosh, it starts with listening. And I know I mentioned that earlier, but listening and listening well. And not to the haters, not to the outliers. Because if you think about it, people give so much of their energy to the outliers. That one bad review, I'm guilty of it too, and I have to like pull myself back into reality and be like, 1,000 women you helped in the past week, and this one Yahoo that like wrote this bad review that's like totally false. No. So bring your attention to like your ideal customer and listen to them well. I believe that kind of like a Venn diagram. Everyone remember 4th grade,
Sure.
but like this circle is like what your customer needs, and this is like how you can show up in the world, and where that oversects any given day is how you can show up and be successful with impact and income. And so when COVID hit, you better bet I made the list, top 10 customers, not just in sales, but in people who refer us, people bring people in, talk about us on social media. I called them up. I'm like, what do we do? What do we do? I have some questions for you. And I had questions, walked them through. I was doing like 3 times a week, 9 to 10 p.m. Zoom calls with groups of customers. We had like over 100 women sign up to join these Zoom calls with us to help us figure out what to do for the Flourish Market. For the locality, I listened to our members. What are your biggest pain points right now? Okay, I'm going to bring in all the therapists. And just listening and understanding what current needs are. And I think that's where business solutions lie. And in this time, what's interesting, I posted this on Instagram the other day, but I was listening to, it was my 4th call that I heard this on in 2 weeks, but big retailers like Target have their buying teams looking at small boutiques right now and what they're doing, because we can pivot faster. And I literally looked at some of our new followers, and I was Googling them on LinkedIn, and I have 2 buyers from Target following us. Isn't that interesting, right? And so I was like, it's great. And I was explaining that to people like, hey, thank you for your feedback and the ideas you've given us for solutions, because you are impacting a much bigger buying ecosystem beyond 2020. It's like the tides have changed. Mm-hmm. So business solutions, especially for small businesses, you can pivot quickly by listening well and change that tide. Have the big folks look at you.
So speaking of those big boxes, right? What are your thoughts on brick and mortar versus e-commerce for yourself or for the clients that you have?
Yeah, I think, we could argue all day what's better, especially in times of COVID, 2021 and beyond. It's so simple as it just comes down to, what's your mission? What do you really want to accomplish? For me, even though it's COVID, my mission is to show up in women's lives. It's very hard for me personally to do that digitally. Some people ace that all day, every day. It's not me. I'm in person. We wanted brick and mortar because we wanted to be able to host events. We wanted to be able for women to come in, even with masks on now, to sit with them, talk about their life, talk about their lifestyle, help them find that perfect pair of jeggings, mix of jeans and leggings. In case you don't know jeans. I love you. You're very.
I have jeggings.
You have jeggings. G has jeggings.
This could play as jeggings,
They are slightly jeggings, yes. But to help them find that perfect pair of jeggings that they can run around and grab their kids with, bend down, up and down 1,000,000 times that they won't fall down. And for me, it's very much about that personal touch. Now, have we had to do some personal touches with e-commerce? Absolutely. But for me, the answer has and always will be brick and mortar, unless my mission in life totally flips on its head. For some people, it is e-commerce all day, every day. They're passionate about that. And I believe in the world, if everyone just did what they were passionate about and went their own route without looking around at what everyone else is doing, that would work out for everyone in our economy in a great way.
So this is a little bit off script, right? So I've been dabbling a little bit into e-commerce, and I've learned a lot about it, and I've done calls and just interviews with it. And one of the interesting things that somebody said to me, which really resonated with me, was about Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. So we were talking about possibly putting a CPG good on and putting it on your entire platform. And I was like, well, why would I put it on Amazon? It's like, well, the thing is, if you think about a mall, right, Amazon per square foot is the biggest mall in the world. Yep. So if you look at from a foot traffic standpoint, you're going to get more traction. Even though you're a small store in that big mall, it really is going to impact your revenue, right? Yep. So when looking at, selling, because there's individuals who I'm sure sell a lot of products on Amazon and on their own platform. What's your take on that, and what direction or how do you analyze it?
Sure. I have a lot of thoughts on Amazon, but I'm a big believer in just say the positive side. Sure. So and guide people there. And I don't know Jeff Bezos personally. I'd love to. Jeff, I have some ideas for you. Holler at me. But I hear different feedback from different people on Amazon's ethics and all of that. And I think we've all kind of heard news stories. I'm not going to comment on that. I actually am not in the details on that. However, what I would say is I don't even try to compete with Amazon. I think it's great, again, for some people. I have friends that sell on Amazon, and they employ, hundreds of people, and that's how they feed their families, and they have really great products that help a lot of people. So for them, it works. for me, we don't compete on price or speed of delivery or anything like that. And so in a world where Amazon reigns supreme, there's still a spot for everyone else if you focus in on what your core delivery is. Like what is your thing that you are going to offer that Amazon can't or that X, Y, or Z can't. And for ours, it's that customer touch point. Like we know our customers, we know when they're having a freaking COVID wedding and we show up with mimosas on their doorstep. Like we know these things about them. And for that, like I could never compete on price. And I think when you're thinking about doing a business, there are so many lanes in which you can't compete. But make your own race, like make your own lane, and you don't even have to worry about anything else over here. Like I can't run a race with Amazon. That's a joke, And one of the things I will say is we had to go to our customers and explain why we really want them to do curbside pickup. And I said, we have a flat rate $2.95 shipping right now, but on average it costs us $9 to $10 to ship every package. And I explained to them, I know in a world where Amazon, you always get free shipping and it ships out like in 2 days, we can't compete on that. So we'd ask for your understanding and know that your impact is real when you shop small, and we know we can't get it out as fast and you're still going to have to pay shipping, but no, this is our cost. And what was interesting is I got so many Instagram messages back from people and emails saying, thanks for letting us know and thanks for kind of calling us out and explaining what you see behind the scenes as a small business owner, because now more than ever, they're still supporting Amazon. Don't get me wrong. I support Amazon, the convenience factor, but when they're able, and they're wanting to support small, and they're wanting to support people in their community.
No, that's great. And you talked a lot about knowing your customers and listening, right? And sometimes that can be foreign language, right? Depending on what your customer segmentation looks like, are you national, global? So how do you receive that feedback from your customers, and how do you implement that in a positive way, or how do you decipher the information you get?
Sure. So I think that it's easier for me almost 5 years in. When I first started the Flourish Market, I kind of look back and I'm a little embarrassed by some of the things we carried. I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder that never sold. But now, we barely have to put anything on sale. We pretty much nail buying for our customer. But I would say, just starting out, I think all these business coaches are like, who exactly do you want to focus on? And no matter if you offer products or services, you need some time to actually experience that in real life and interact with people online or in person to understand exactly who you want to serve, and you can refine it along the way. It took me about 2 years to really refine our ideal customer. And what that came down to and how I figured that out is who do I most love serving? And in return, who do I find favor with? That's how I'd phrase it. 2 years in, who do I find favor with? Who is liking every post? Who is there at every event? Who is, who are we having the most impact in their lives with? And that becomes very clear. And as far as how do we do it? Pick up the phone. I think people pick up the phone, get on Zoom with someone, ask them in person. We hold quarterly roundtables at our shop. We haven't because of COVID, but we took them on Zoom, where we do a whole lavish meal for 15 random customers. And I say random in quotation marks because they're all our ideal customer, but they don't know each other. And when is the last time people were asked for their opinion, knowing that they would help someone?
Right.
It's been a long time. So business owners, pick up the phone, get in front of people, and ask for their advice. They'd love to give it and to help you flourish.
That is a great comment, and it is very interesting because a lot of times we're afraid to do that.
To bother people.
Right.
It's not bothering them. People love. That's a big rule of change management. Is you listen, and then you want to help people feel like they're co-creators of the solution. That's empowering to people.
Absolutely.
And so, don't be afraid. Maybe someone doesn't call you back or email you back, but the majority will if you've done a good job as a business owner in serving them well.
That's great to hear, and hopefully maybe I can join your next roundtable.
Come on over in your jeggings, G. You're invited.
Do you have men's jeggings?
We don't have men's jeggings. I'm sorry. Flat out no.
Okay. Maybe that's something we could talk about.
We could be a co-creator.
That's right.
We'll talk about it.
So being a female and being a female entrepreneur, right? Where does your inspiration come from when you create a locality? What did that come from? Because that's amazing, right? I mean, I didn't know about it until probably a few months ago when Shannon was part of it. It's man, that is really, really cool. And I feel like I'm in touch with the co-working space in our community. When I heard about it, I was man, this is really inspirational. So where did that inspiration come from for you?
It came from my time spent in the developing world. It's very interesting because people will come in my shop and they'll be like, I know what they're thinking if this is their first time there, and they're like, I'm here to help poor people. So we really are very adamant about how we position our marketing, and when people collaborate with us, how they talk about us. But still, people come in and they see these women's faces on tags, and they'll immediately go to that whole like white saviorism type of complex that we've kind of grown up in the societal constructs around that. But there is so much, and I mean this with like the most sincere authenticity, which I think people will be able to hear, but there's so much to be learned by how women do life and business together in the developing world when it is like mass chaos, all these crazy things against them, literally like maybe a certain diagnosis leads to being booted out of their whole community, their kids taken away from them. You hear all these crazy stories, these hard stories, and yet they flourish. Mm-hmm. And that came down to one big thing, and that is they do life and business in community. So they are in co-ops. They, you know, your straw to make your basket, I'll share with you today. They pool their resources. One of the women, when I was talking to her about why she loved being in the co-op that she was in so much, I was like, what changed for you after joining? And she said, I no longer have to walk the long red dirt road to the market myself.
Right.
And be at my table by myself. And we've all, as entrepreneurs, probably every woman, every person maybe, has felt what that long walk on that long red dirt road has felt like and been applicable into our life. Like when have I felt that? All the time. And so this image came to mind of her walking, and I got to make the walk the next day with her and all these women together, and to see them set up at a table together and support each other when there's, compared to us, complete lack of resources, right? But they weren't competing over them. And so I was like, oh, that's made them so successful. I want to replicate that here in my community and trial that and to see that. And especially since COVID has hit, it has felt like a long walk on a red dirt road at times, but we've been together. And that's really been my inspiration is the type of woman we target for the locality is a woman who doesn't have as much community as she wants. She wants to do things in community. She's not super competitive, and she believes in giving and taking from the table. And so we've really together through COVID been walking that road together. And the silver lining in COVID for the locality is that you would walk into the co-working space before, and yes, we had socials and all of that, but a lot of times you sit beside someone you don't know if they wanted to chat, you know, like, are they worried? Like, are they not worried? I don't know. But virtually, we show up and have all these meetings, and we're interfacing, and people are there to chat. And that's like a known thing. So we've really grown closer together. And I just think, I mean, it's not just something I lead. It's something that I get to take an abundance from the table from, because seeing these women succeed, seeing them go through hard things, it inspires me, because I'm like, I'm not out in the arena alone. I look over at the next desk over, I'm like, you know, Shannon's out there going for it. She's sending that pitch email, so I'm going to send my pitch email too and go for it.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, obviously, you're making tremendous change and impact on everybody. And change is something you talk a lot about, right? In business, in life. And often change is very difficult. You know, it's difficult for people to adapt to, and it's something that we resist. But, you know, how do you prepare for change?
Yeah.
You know, or how do you prepare for driving the change?
Mm-hmm. Preparing for change, I think, it's funny. I saw a commercial this morning that was like, it was like people in the metro in New York City, and the announcement came on. It was like, there will be a hurricane in 2 weeks from today. And it was like, prepare accordingly. And people were like really confused. And so a lot of change you can't prepare for, like COVID.
Right.
Like I found out like 2 days before I needed to close my store that I was going to close my store. But if and when I know a change is coming, or a business knows that a change is coming, if they're leading mass layoffs and I'm helping consult them or whatever it is, I tell them to prepare for grief and to be able to hold space for their teams and colleagues to grieve. The change curve, it has 5 steps. I won't go into it, but when I teach that, it models the same curve as a grief curve that people take family members through in hospice. It is the same curve. And so until people can properly grieve and cry and get all their emotions out, you cannot move to solutions and get people in like a state where they can even perform the most basic tasks. And I think that's where I see a lot of people go wrong, is we kind of keep it all in. And for me as an entrepreneur, if I don't cry about COVID or what I've seen, my friend's father passing away, creates this undercurrent of anxiety that runs in me that I am really good at compartmentalizing. And so for me, I don't cry a lot of times, but I have to go and hit something really hard, like a punching bag, because I'm angry more than I'm sad a lot. And so I think just, if you know it's coming, prepare, mark off your calendar, and be able to hold some space to go on walks or to sit with a friend or just like be sad or be angry. Because until we get that out, and with COVID, right, it's not like you cry for 2 weeks and then you go on with your life. It's you slide up and down that curve consistently, even maybe within an hour. And so giving yourself space to do that, because I know it takes away time from your day. But when you do that, the other hours of your day are spent with so much more resilience and clarity and impact.
And it's so interesting that we're having this conversation, because before we got on talking about it, I think I was telling you I had a lack of sleep. Yeah. And different people have a different way of grieving and knowing that, oh my God, I'm going through that cycle. And for me, it's sleep. Like when I can't sleep, that means, holy shit, something is wrong, right? But then it's just almost a spidey sense for me, right? If I know that I didn't sleep, that means I really need to recalibrate and focus and put my energy to resolving whatever the issues at hand. Yes. So that was last night for me. I was like, I rarely have trouble sleeping. If I put my head down, I'm gone in like 30 seconds, right? Same. And not being able to sleep last night, I'm like, God, there's something wrong. And I mean, I knew what was wrong internally, right? It's just being an entrepreneur, you want to constantly manage everything, and you have to have your hands in everything. You have to have life balance with family and work, and all those things are going on in your head, and you know that you need to recalibrate. Yes. Right. So I think it's important to know when that spidey sense is going off to recalibrate. And what really helped me recalibrate this morning was I was literally putting on my boots, and my daughter came in, and she's like, "Hey, Dad." I was like, this is all I needed, right? And to say, hey, you know what? Everything will be fine. Yes. We'll move forward. And as long as you have your health and your family, I think we'll be thankful and be blessed. Yeah. But without really going emotional down there, because I almost went down that path. But, that's one of the things that as an entrepreneur that we have to constantly balance is life and work, right? Because life outside of, I'm a victim for myself, right? And my wife asks me this all the time. It's like, God, why do you love work so much? And I don't know, but I just love it. It's just what I'm really passionate about. But we have to find that balance. And how do you create a balance for your personal life where it doesn't get eaten up by your entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing all that you did. I love that thought of your daughter running in. That's so sweet. I love that so much. Yeah, I think we need these. I think the universe sends us these reminders just when we need them, when we're like on the edge of being like, what is all this for? Like existential crisis.
I don't want to go to work today.
Oh my gosh. What is life? And sometimes you don't get those reminders and you sit and cry. That was me on my therapy appointment last week. I was like, I just don't know where the tears are coming from. My therapist was like, do we need to review the last few months? Like, I can give you a lot of things of where that's probably coming from. Okay, how do I balance business and personal life? I've listened to a lot of people talk about this because I used to worry so much about it and think, I'm a very practical person, so I'm like, do I need to block off my calendar? Like, do I need to schedule in time with my friends? And that really stressed me out and didn't work for me. And so I view it now, and I'm speaking from a perspective of I don't have kids, I'm single. So everyone else quit listening because I'll probably offend you. But from my personal perspective, what I have to share is that the visual I see is like a seesaw. And I think a lot of people talk about like business and life as like, okay, from 9 to 5, you do business and, and then switch at 5 and then the seesaw goes back down. Okay, now it's like family and personal. And that seems like very jarring to me. Uh-huh. For me, again, single, no kids, I view business, personal, all of that as like, what am I here on this earth to do? What am I here on this earth to do? And I have 3 guiding principles for my life, and that is I pass on my freedom, I pass on my joy, and I speak truth in love. And I can do that all day, whether it's business and personal. Mine are so intertwined. But I will say sometimes personal, that can take up too much of my time and take too much out of me and zap me, that I actually need to refine that rooting in business. Sometimes in COVID, business was like wild, wild, wild. And so I had to lean into other things from a personal perspective that would help root me into that mission and why I'm here. And so it's more of like a flat seesaw. And it's like if you just keep that balance by thinking, for me, like, okay, I'm just going to show up in my purpose today. That might mean technically 2 hours worth of business meetings, and the rest I need to be there for a friend walking through something, or I need to take a call about whatever. But for me, from my perspective of who I am in life in this season, that is how I look at it.
You know, that is an amazing answer. And you could have probably gave that answer for this question I'm about to ask you.
Oh, okay.
But now you're going to have to come up with another amazing answer, right?
Gee, what is this?
So if somebody gave you a microphone to speak to everybody in the world, right, meaning everybody could hear you for 1 minute, right? Focus attention. What would you say to them?
Gee, this is like the type of question that spins you into an existential crisis. You're such a jerk. I'm going to go for it because I got a mic right here.
Right.
Yeah, I would just yell in this mic, and I'm envisioning like a woman that I'm yelling this at. I would say, go look here. Okay. Stop waiting. I would tell them stop waiting on their microphone and their stage and permission from anybody to have impact in this world. And that can seem really fluffy, but so many people stay frozen. I'm stuck at this job, so I can't have an impact. I can't do X, Y, or Z. But I waited for so long for someone to give me permission to take a stage and to put a microphone in my hand. And that opportunity never really came. And growing up in church, and this is like a sidebar, but just growing up in the South, a lot of women aren't extended opportunities. And I think that was deeply ingrained in me of like, men speak from stage, women don't. And so I'm really passionate about telling women, like, claim your stage, build your own stage, grab a few friends, build it, go buy a microphone, put it underneath your mouth. People need what you have to say. For some people, that doesn't look like speaking. It looks like volunteering at a place at the table that my friend Maggie owns. Yeah. I want women especially, but everyone, but women especially, to look at the giftings, the passions that they have and do something. Like I always say, stick your paddle in the water. If you've ever paddleboarded, you know you can't stand up immediately or you'll crash. You have to put your paddle, you sit down, you put your paddle in the water, you gradually build momentum, then you can stand. I think people look at a paddleboard in life and they think like, how do I get from A to B? I'll never do it. And you won't if you don't stick your paddle in the water. So I'm like, stop waiting for permission. Go volunteer, go speak up, go get on some committee, join a Zoom call, and speak your mind or sign up to volunteer, because it's then what you're meant to do here in this world becomes more clear when you're a good steward of today. And I want to call women forth. I'm not passionate at all. Now I have chills, and I'm in an existential crisis. But that's my answer, G. Did I do it in under a minute?
This is awesome. Em, that was super inspirational. And thank you for being here. Actually, believe it or not, this is actually what I needed today to hear. So I really appreciate you coming on the inGenuity Talk series. This was amazing, tremendous. Thank you so much. I wish you best on all your ventures. And anytime I can be there for you to help in any way, I will be there.
I'm going to call you about the jeggings.
Absolutely.
Count on it.
Thank you.
Thanks, G.